Whereas I think on LinkedIn, super wealthy people usually get off of LinkedIn eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know you made it in life when you're done with LinkedIn, you know?
Yeah.
Aleksey, the founder of the GPLP match. I see at least a post a day from you on LinkedIn.
I write a newsletter to 8,500 investors, many of whom are LPs. And I'll tell people like, hey, what is a market split? What is a market prep? What is a market this? The way that I learn isn't really by reading. It's just by seeing stuff. And so I could tell people what market is, or I could prove it to them by sending them 4 deals a day and they'll see.
You're creating a marketplace, and you're creating what's market today for prep promote structures.
It's not even creating. The market is already there. It's just extremely inefficient. And my goal is to make it more efficient.
There's so much data out there, so many deals, but for it to all be together, synthesized, analyzed together in one platform is what you're creating, which is the next step to make it more efficient. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Deal Flow Friday. I'm your host, David Mogavam, and today I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but you don't need a last name because if you're on LinkedIn, everyone knows who Aleksey is. So Aleksey, the founder of the GPLP match, I see at least a post a day from you on LinkedIn. It's a pleasure to get you on the pod after following you for all these years. Founder of GPLP match platform, author of LP Lessons newsletter. You got to subscribe. You got to follow what Aleksey's up to. A true entrepreneur. Aleksey, good to have you.
You say a true entrepreneur, but I feel like I'm just trying. I'm trying and surviving.
Isn't that what entrepreneurship's all about? It's all about trying
Yeah,
and
it's
surviving.
funny. Like I feel like that is that's a big part of entrepreneurship is just realizing at some point that everyone is just trying to figure it out as they go along. That's certainly my
Yeah, I
case.
mean,
I can tell you that, but I
exactly.
appreciate
You
the
gotta
compliment.
enjoy the struggle. It's about the journey.
Right.
Um, and part of that journey is meeting new people and trying to get new perspectives. And that's what this pod is all about. It's a real estate pod, but really real estate people in general are entrepreneurs, raising money, raising capital, coming up with business plans, coming up with ideas. So yeah, I mean, we're all entrepreneurs in this together.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks again. Sorry, I didn't mean to ignore the original
No,
comment,
no
but thank
problem,
you
no
for having me.
problem.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know you're also a quadruple major at University of Arizona.
True statement. Yeah, it's a separate question as to whether I would still do that again today, but yes.
Are you gonna catch the March Madness as we're recording this pod? Arizona is about to play Duke later tonight. You're gonna catch that game?
I would be lying if I said I would. I honestly just don't have
That's a
time to
true
follow sports
entrepreneur.
this
That's the
much.
right answer. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
man,
No
I'm
time
just
for
grinding.
distractions. Yeah,
Like I
exactly.
also have, I also thank God, like I have 3 kids. It's like I try to find enough time to sleep nowadays. That's the
Yeah,
focus.
yeah, that's true. That's true. The college days are over. So
I usually
back
listen.
to the
I
grind.
usually listen to the highlights. Listen to the
Yeah,
highlights. I always like see the updates from my friends, so I feel like I see enough.
the Spark Notes. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The GPT
Yeah,
notes.
true. True, true. So, Aleksey, let's jump into it. I mean, for those of you that don't know in the audience, the GPLP match platform has been a big hit. It's all over LinkedIn. Aleksey's done a great job hand picking and auditing those who've been signing up. So, Aleksey, would love to hear from you. What made you want to start this platform in the first place? Let's start there.
Sure. I just want to comment quickly on the auditing part. Um, I would not call what I do auditing as opposed to just making sure that things are accurate. It's
Sure.
a little
Making sure
intricate.
it's not a bot.
Yeah. Yeah, meaning I try to make sure that for the benefit of the GP and the LPs on the platform that like if someone says that they have, I don't know, 10 realized investments, that's actually true. right? And they didn't like mistype or whatever, or misunderstand the question, which would be my fault. But beyond that, like the diligence is on the LPs. So just in terms of the
Sure.
idea, look, I mean, like I've been advising LPs for some time. I used to be in like the institutional REIT world, didn't know so much about GPs and LPs. In fact, I would say I basically knew nothing about 3 years ago. So in terms of starting the platform, the biggest thing was just advising LPs for, a good year and a half. I kept hearing the same thing. Like from GPs, I heard, hey, like I have a good deal. Can you put me in touch with LPs? From LPs, like once a week, I would talk to someone who had a big exit, has a lot of cash, and they're just like, where do I find GPs? And usually those conversations I noticed they're very unique in that usually people have some sort of idea of what they want to see, right? They either want like cash on cash of a certain number, they want like a pref of a certain number, they want a split of a certain number, they want the GP to have a certain number of properties under their belt in the portfolio or realized. Maybe they only want to see properties in California, um, or perhaps they only want to see industrial deals and no others, right? So this is basically that solution where like an LP can sign up and within like 30 seconds to a minute, basically tell me like you can only email me if X, Y, and Z parameters are met. That can be market, that can be deal metrics, that can be all types of things. Um, and I usually send 2 to 4 deals per day. And if you have your filter set, typically you'll get 1 or 2 of them, right? Because at least one of the filters will fail and you just won't get it, which is the whole purpose of it.
Yeah. It's the idea of there's thousands of deals out there and you have a specified criteria of what you're trying to look for, and it widens and casts the net of which deals interest you. Have you thought a little bit also about the people behind the deals, and ways to connect seasoned operators with seasoned investors and how to kind of get to that next level? Because these deals, from what we experience, it's everyone can make a return look the way they want it to on paper. How do you get it to the
Yep.
next level where you can also audit the people in a certain sense, or at least put some clarity of who are the people behind the deals?
Yeah, great question. Look, I think the short answer is it's within like my 5-year vision to do something like that.
Hmm.
I think, and maybe I can just describe it to you simply. Anytime a public company issues a bond, for example, they will typically go out and get a credit rating from Moody's or S&P or both, right? In order for the potential bond investors to understand their business, get comfortable, and so on and so forth. Obviously, in the public markets, there's much bigger dollars trading, right? But I think there's a world not so far away where there could be credit ratings for a given GP and for and somewhat separately, I would argue, a GP's new deal. Meaning I would sort of separate, they're obviously related, but like a GP's health might be better or worse than the deal that they're working on,
Sure.
standalone, right? And so hopefully one day I can bring that. I just, to be candid, I just don't feel like I have the reach to make that work currently.
Yeah.
But if I keep compounding for a few years, hopefully that'll be the case.
Yeah. And it makes sense from a qualitative standpoint. Like we already do that from a qualitative standpoint. You meet a sponsor, you meet an operator, you say, okay, they have a great reputation. LP might ask for a sponsor's track record. And you say, okay, they've performed on these assets. Oh, they've been in the business for 20 years. But it does make sense that maybe you can convert that qualitative side of credit rating to an actual measurable number. So
Yep.
it does make a good sense. And I think in the GPLP match, that could potentially be the next step.
Yeah, I think I need to reach much larger scale, David. Like, I mean, I'm saying like it's pretty cool that there's 1,500 accredited LPs. Very cool, and I'm very proud of it. But like, it's a scale that's like not even in the ballpark of where I would need to be to sort of push out. and establish some sort of rating system that actually sticks. You know what I mean? And is
Sure.
is meaningful.
Sure. So
It's sort of
going back
just
to
to connect back to like the public markets,
exactly. Yep.
like bond investors like won't even touch a bond generally, not always, but generally it's like the first thing is like, hey, can you send me the Moody's report? You know,
Yeah.
it's just like where their mind starts many times, or they'll even pull it before talking right to the borrower or the banker. But here that's just not the case. You get what I'm saying? Like you need a massive base of LPs to like um create something like that.
I guess going back to the initial question of what made you want to start this, and you were doing LP raising on the side. Do you feel like the LPs you were working with just weren't seeing enough deals in a sense where they're like, I need to see more deals and this is kind of the solution for it?
You know, it's a fascinating question. One just quick comment. I I didn't do capital raising on the side. I did like advisory work. I never raised
Okay.
money for anyone, and I can't because that would be conflict of interest with me
Sure.
giving people advice. Um, so I've explicitly chose not to do that, and that's also why, by the way, like GPLP match is free to both sides. A lot of people did say that. Like, I wish I could see more deals. Um, in a funny way, many people would tell me the opposite. Like, I just have so many deals, and I don't know like which one is correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually like the beginning of this platform was like this. Like, I write a newsletter to 8,500 give or take investors, many of whom are LPs. And I'll tell people like, hey, what is a market split? What is a market prep? What is a market this? Like, what should you see in a deck? And I've realized over time, like, look, the way that I learn isn't really by reading. It's just by seeing stuff, right?
Sure.
And so I could tell people what market is, or I could prove it to them by sending them 4 deals a day, and they'll see, right? Like when you see, you know, 4-ish deals a day, and like each one of them generally is like a 70% split or 65 or an 80 or whatever, and some of them have good track records, then the next time you get a deal that's like a 30-70 split with someone that doesn't have a track record at all, you would just look at that as an LP because now you got a little bit educated, right?
Yeah.
um
You're creating
and
you're creating a marketplace, and you're creating what's market today for pref promote structures by seeing all these
sort of,
deals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like like I'm sort of it's not even creating. It's like the market is already there. It's just it's
Right.
extremely inefficient, and my goal is to make it more efficient.
For sure. For sure. Efficiency and transparency, right? There's so much data out there, and especially in the real estate environment, there's so much data out there, so many deals, but for it to all be together, synthesized, analyzed together in one platform is what you're creating, which is the next step to make it more efficient.
I hope so. That's the plan.
Yeah, exactly. So
me myself
one
and I.
thing, one thing I have to ask, because I see your posts every day. Are you coding yourself as well? Are you coding and doing all of this, the back end work yourself?
Literally everything on GPLP matches me, like from scratch,
Wow.
including the code.
Where did you get that experience from to code and build out the platform?
I mean, so I studied math in undergrad. Um, so like I would say I'm like not a software developer by any means. It's like very elementary what I know. But you know, honestly, David, like in the past year, coding has become way easier. There's this program called Cursor, and you can basically like talk to it, and it actually like does pretty well.
It's a
And so like
good ad for Cursor.
I don't even think they need it, to be honest. You know, seriously, like it's so
Yeah,
impressive because like I used to spend like hours debugging stuff because I'm dumb. Like I'm not that good at coding. But
sure.
here you literally just tell it, "Hey, I think there's an error here. I don't understand it." And it'll like fix it. And I don't know, like 50% of the time it'll be correct on the first try. If not, maybe you'll Google it, but I'm telling you, it cut the coding by a fraction of like 10 probably for me. Like I would have spent 10 times more hours coding everything if it wasn't for that.
Of course. I mean, listen, even with the podcast, with starting this podcast with AI, it's decreased the amount of time to edit significantly by using, we're
Yeah,
using Riverside here. And it does some of that audio and video and cutting automatically. And
that's awesome.
it's done wonders. And leveraging that technology allows you to be more productive in what matters. One of the things too that you've been crushing it on is your social media presence, and I'm sure that's part of your strategy in growing your LP and GP base. How do you prepare posting? What do you think about? Do you just post what comes to mind? Do you have a strategy of what you post in order to target who? Talk to me a little bit about your social media presence strategy.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, David, I think it's extremely unsophisticated. I'll just be honest with you. Like I don't like I tried, there's like these apps that like help you schedule stuff. There's these apps that like help you make images and all, and I just like it's just I couldn't do it. I don't know, like I like something comes to my head and I see it that same day and I think it's valuable and I'll share it.
Yeah.
The basic things that you do learn over time is like you probably shouldn't post too many times per day. Sometimes the time of day matters, but even that, like, probably shouldn't include like links in the post, otherwise it'll get like sort of less growth. um, there's like small stuff like that, but it's just me like posting random ideas basically. And I think the key with anything, and it was with just not just social media, but it's just consistency, man. Like, I mean, I've been doing it for a while. Um, Surprisingly, I don't know if you're on Twitter. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
like
I have no followers, but yeah.
no, so I've like for what it's worth, like my LinkedIn growth is like multiples of I post basically the same
Same.
things. Like sometimes I'll edit it a little bit. Um, this is not it. It was not the case before, but now like I think I shouldn't say this out loud, but like I'm extremely bullish on LinkedIn. And I'm spending a lot of
Same,
time there.
honestly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it used to be the opposite. I like I used to despise going on it.
I used to not stand like couldn't even stand going on LinkedIn before. And
Yeah,
I would say in
exactly.
the past couple of years, I've gotten more active on it. I think the algorithms just improved tremendously where it's reaching the right people. And on Twitter, on X, I don't know, like I put the same post and it just gets zero traction. I'm
Yep.
still posting on it, but it's like zero traction.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, like me being able to follow you and connect with you, I think it was through LinkedIn. I think it's just it just reaches the right people at the right times.
Yeah, I think it figures it out. Based on like social circles and stuff and topics, right? And look, it's not perfect. It's far from it, right? But yeah, I sort of just see it as my advertising, to be honest. It's
Yeah.
like I don't spend any money on advertising, but I just like post things that I hope are useful and hope that people find me over time. And I just do it every day, sometimes a few times a day. And I don't know, like that compounds to pretty like impressive numbers over time.
Yeah. You have a great following. What's like some of the most like one of the most notable LinkedIn connections or like stories that you're like, holy shit, I can't believe posting on LinkedIn led me to this.
I probably have more of those on Twitter, actually, to be honest, which is kind of interesting. So we can talk about this if you want. My
Sure.
hunch is
I'm
like,
curious to hear it on social media in general. But yeah.
yeah. So like, I mean, I had an exchange with Bill Ackman, for example, at some point. And I was just like, that's wild. Like it's like it's crazy, And like he actually responded to my questions, and I think we even like maybe traded a few messages. I guess I had two. There's another like famous short seller. I actually don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but either Chanos or Canos, Jim. Um, he was like a very big. He used to run like a really big hedge fund. And that was really cool too. And like I've had like a lot of iterations of that. But I think what's interesting about Twitter is I would say Twitter is very binary in terms of its like users. Either they're sort of like just there to hate on people and they're like useless, so to speak, or maybe like negative, right? Um
Yeah.
like the trolls, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're like very wealthy people with anonymous accounts, like very wealthy. Like people have reached out to me there that are billionaires, and like we've actually connected, and it's like real, you know.
Yeah.
And it'll usually be like, something along the lines of like, hey, I've been following you for a year. I just decided to reach out. I really enjoy your stuff, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like I'm almost like this is fake. It can't be true, right? But then
Yeah.
you speak to them, and you meet them one day, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like I met someone. Whereas I think on LinkedIn, like super wealthy people usually get off of LinkedIn eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. Like I think LinkedIn is usually like obviously it's full of very successful people, but I think at some point of net worth they almost like get off. And some of them either stay off of social media completely, and some of them like make anonymous accounts on Twitter for like
You
news and
you know
whatever.
you made it in life when you're done with LinkedIn,
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
yeah,
also
yeah.
don't know. Yeah, yeah. It gets it's you're there's a point where you're doing nothing with your life, you're not on LinkedIn. Then you're trying to do something with your life, you get heavily in LinkedIn, and then you've made it and you get off LinkedIn at that point,
Yep.
and you start trolling people uh anonymously on Twitter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Back to capital raising as a LP advisor in the past and now kind of a quasi LP advisor too. I'm sure you're still doing a little bit of that on the side with the GPLP match. What are some common GP pet peeves of yours that you can't stand when you're looking at deals that GPs are pitching and you're just like a big turnoff right from the start when you see it?
Like I really try to be reasonable, David, I even have written articles about this. Like people ask me all the time, like, what are the red flags? And I just don't think about investments that way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the only two red flags that I've published are the word guaranteed, because like, I mean, I have a whole article on this, but like if even if you're personally guaranteeing something, that does not mean it's guaranteed. Um, and some other ones are like no return of capital clause. Believe it or not, that exists. Like I mean, it's like very basic stuff for any syndication, but I've seen deals that don't have it. Um, those two are like really like the only red flags, right? Meaning
Mm-hmm.
those are basically reasons to just like put down a deck and never speak to the GP again,
Yeah.
in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Um, Now, just like some simple feedback, like you would not believe how many decks I see that either don't have an address for the property at all in the deck, or it's just like extremely hard to find. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I look for it for like 3 minutes and I'm like, come on, guys. Like there's
Yeah.
LPs literally passing on this deal because they can't Google the place,
Yeah.
just like basic stuff.
Yeah. Going through your GPLP match, it was interesting with some of like the check boxes that you had and said like, does your deck list all the fees that the GP is charging? I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, how can you have a deck that doesn't have that, of
Oh,
like
I
what your fees
50% of
are
them
as a
don't.
GP.
Fifty
So
percent
like
of them
something simple
don't.
like that. So I'm sure
Right.
like those small items are probably turnoffs, and it's interesting to hear from you as someone who's seen so many of those decks of what people are doing and not or leaving out.
Yep. Yeah, it happens a lot. And I very intentionally like put the questions in that way
Mm.
because, as I said, like many investment decks don't have fees. Many investment decks don't have an address. They don't have a sources and uses. There's just like very basic things that I think decks should have, and you'd be surprised how many don't.
Yeah, yeah, and it could be a good deal. It could be a good sponsor, but if they're just uh, overlooking some small thing like that, you might get a lot of people just turning it down just because of that. So it's good to
Exactly.
know. Alexei, one other thing, you're really into the capital matching of and matching operators with money. Do you have your own perspective on a type of geography or a type of asset that you personally are bullish on? I know obviously there's a conflict of interest of of trying to recommend like a person, like a deal or operator. But just from what you're seeing out there, what's like asset type and geography that you're bullish on right now, personally?
I mean, so background wise, I was at a REIT. We invested like 1 to 2 billion a year in like literally any place, essentially, in the US. Um, and so I think that experience taught me that like at the right price, so to speak, and the right returns, like almost anything could potentially be interesting. The question is how does it all compare to one another overall? Is the alignment there? Does the GP have like the ability to execute on something? I'll tell you, I mean, something that I've spoken about that definitely makes me really nervous, meaning the opposite of bullish, if you will, is just like rent regulation getting worse. In some areas, I think
Mm-hmm.
obviously like it's been a known fact that some states already have this in place. Like let's say New York and California or LA, right? Being like some obvious ones. But like I think I guess just in my humble opinion, I almost feel like GPs are not paying attention to that enough because if you buy a property and a new law passes that caps your rents and going forward, like I mean, the value of your property just changed tremendously, and you still own the building, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, like if you're buying in states that have had a track record of like, um, more and more of these regulations, um, I don't know, that makes me pretty nervous. It's like it's almost like impossible for me to like even analyze those deals, to be honest. It's like it's so hard because you just don't know
Yeah.
what's coming.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. As an operator, you're promising risk adjusted returns, right? But how can you quantify risk, such as political risk, where you don't know what the next move is? The rules can change at any second. So how do you
Right,
quantify that? And I think to your point,
right.
you can't. Insurance, you can somewhat quantify and look at premiums and uh, bad debt operationals. There's so many facets of risk that you can quantify. Political risk is probably one of the hardest to do. So I get what you're saying
Yeah,
from there. What about asset class wise?
I'm totally open. I mean, I look at everything. I've advised on almost everything. I think I've said publicly that I think the best LP investment I've seen in the past 2 years was like literally a single tenant vacant office building. Um, I mean, it was just like a phenomenal deal. And of course, by the way,
Hmm.
while we're on the topic, at the time it wasn't liquid, so like I sent it to a few friends because I just thought it was like phenomenal, and they were like, oh, I don't know, like office, like single
Yeah.
tenant, vacant, like come on, like you can't send me something else, and I'm like, you just don't understand, like you asked me for distress, like here's a definition of that, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, man, like I don't know. So people like talking about
What
distressed
what
deals.
got you what got you like most excited about that deal at the time where when others were fearing it? What got you super excited about that?
I mean, I have somewhat of a background in single tenant, right? And that
Hmm.
makes it a little bit closer to home, but just basis, man. Like it was like an insane basis relative to any comps you could basically find, uh, all the way back to like 20 years ago. It was like crazy, and it was
Yeah.
like it was a
To
pretty
the point
nice.
where if you demoed it and sold the raw materials as scraps, you would get your money back. Like that
Yeah, in
that
fact,
that
that's
low,
what they ended up
probably.
doing. Not exactly, but like what they ended up doing is
No way.
they
Yeah.
they were planning to find a tenant, but someone just bought it and scraped the thing. And so after paying a huge premium to the person who bought
Yeah.
it, it was still worthwhile to scrape it and rebuild, which is crazy. But that's why I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
it's like any way you look at it,
For
the
sure.
potential was amazing.
One other question, Alexi, when you're advising all these LPs, what are some of the recommendations you have as they're sifting through these thousands of deals that you're sending them?
Um, I think the first one is like don't sift through thousands of them. Like set your filters, right? That they're there for a reason.
Mhm.
And that will itself potentially go from thousands to hundreds or dozens, right? Which is the whole point of the filters. Meaning, once you get a good sense of what filters you would like to set and what makes you tick, so to speak, as an LP, then you can start setting filters. Um, Beyond that, I would just say like no one is telling you to invest. Like sometimes people forget about that. You also don't need to invest in the first deal you see, even if you like it, you know. And I think from a GP's perspective, if an LP reaches out and they're like, "Hey, like I'd like to," I've actually had a few of these. Like people reached out to a GP and they were like, "Hey, like I'm not sure that I'm interested in this. Um, but do you mind giving me a call at some point? I just have a few questions." They would have a conversation, and the LP actually ended up passing, right? But the GP made a contact, and I'll tell you the honest truth. I think in many cases, LPs see how people react to those things. Like, how did they react to having a conversation? How did they react to like the LP saying, "I'm not interested," right? Um, and in the meantime, they might be sitting on a few million and they're like thinking about like, all right, like that was really impressive. Like he or she had really good answers. And like I'm gonna wait until the next deal and I'll look at it more seriously.
I guess last thing to wrap it up, how can people get a hold of you? Obviously on LinkedIn, uh, they, you know, they can reach out, but I'm sure you're getting bombarded with DMs. How else can everyone get a hold of you and chat
Yeah,
with you?
honestly, the easiest is LinkedIn or Twitter. I check my DMs. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like a day or two behind in terms of answering, but and my email is on LinkedIn too. Like people can reach out anytime.
Okay, awesome. Aleksey, thanks again for hopping on to Deal Flow Friday. Looking forward to seeing what else you're going to accomplish and looking forward to connecting again.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on.